Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. Hope everybody had a good hump day. I know I did. I got a little outside entertainment, got in the sun. It's really hot here in Minnesota. But anyway, we're live per usual, 6 on the West, 9 on the East, 2 UK time. I hope everything is all good as far as sound and whatnot. I believe it is. If I could get maybe a text message or two to confirm that. um, Skype was giving me a little bit of problems. Some other co-hosts that I talked to as well. So hopefully everything is on point when it comes to that. I believe it should be, but it was just kind of acting a little funky. So if someone could give me a text message to make sure they could hear me, that would be phenomenal. That would be great. I just got confirmation, so I think we're good to go. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about, obviously, from last weekend. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, this is boxing, right? So why else wouldn't it be, um, you know, why else wouldn't it have a bunch of different stuff? And actually, yeah, it looks like I just got a couple text messages. So it looks like you guys can hear me. The intro was just a little weird. Usually when I call in a little later, it prompts the show to start. So as far as the intro music, and it didn't do that. But anyway, I think that we got the problem solved. So on the show tonight, we are going to start with recap, and it's going to feature heavy recap debate, round by round debate for two fights in particular. Obviously, the Manny Pacquiao Jeff Horn fight turned out to be a lot better than pretty much everyone thought, which is great for boxing. Obviously, it got a great rating as well, which was to be expected because, Manny Pacquiao and just the attention it received in general on ESPN. We'll talk about what happened inside the ring, whether we agree with the scorecards that were given Jeff Horn a unanimous decision. Obviously, one of the scorecards was pretty ridiculous, but we'll get into that and, break that down. Obviously, we got to talk about a potential rematch between the two fighters later this year. Um, Also, talk about, well, Pacquiao retiring. How much credit beyond, what Jeff Horn deserves. I think what's lost in all of this robbery talk and and all that is Jeff Horn. He didn't get the credit, even if you thought he lost clearly. He's not getting the credit, but let's talk about it realistically. Manny Pacquiao even admitted that he didn't think it'd be that tough of a fight. He undervalued Jeff Horn much like the rest of us did. So we're going to talk about a rematch, retirement, how you scored the fight. What was it? What brought Manny Pacquiao to this stage? Is he taking the training serious? Obviously, he's a busy guy. Is he taking it seriously? I mean, he definitely trained for this fight. It's not that. It just how hard did he train, right? And then a fight that got overlooked both in the pre-fight, during the week, and post-fight. In fact, there's only two reasons why this got any attention at all, and that's because of two horrible scorecards. I'm talking, of course, of the Robert Easter Jr. versus Dennis Shafikov fight on Bounce. That was Friday. So two big fights are going to be the main topic of the show, and both of them have controversy. Both of them have debatable outcomes, and when you look at the scorecards, it's pretty ridiculous. One of them from the Pacquiao Horn fight, but two of them especially from that Easter Jr. and Shafikov fight. That was a really good fight, and that's the fight that we tried to talk about and stress. And, last week my Skype cut off, so we didn't get to finish the show. 503 didn't get to get his shtick in there either. I feel bad. Okay, so it sounds like, just like last week, that it's just ringing again, meaning it's not allowing people in. I had a little problems getting in through a couple of the different numbers that they give you, but I guess just stick with it. It'll let you in at some point. I really don't. I hope this isn't an ongoing problem here. This is kind of strange. Big shouts out to everybody on YouTube that checked out some of the videos I made in the last week. So yeah, we're going to be heavy on the recap. We will cover some news as well. We'll take a look at the upcoming weekend schedule. Now, it's a little light in the way of big names. The biggest fight was going to be a fight I was really looking forward to, Billy Joe Saunders versus Kurt Cedes, right? Little Tyson is what they call him. But the RICO Act came in and ruined the fight. No, it's not just the RICO Act's problem. It's Little Tyson, Kurt Cedes. He got in a bunch of trouble. Allegedly, he got in a bunch of trouble, and that fight's off. But that was going to be a good fight. I really wanted to see what Billy Joe Saunders could do to keep Kurt Cedes off of him. That could have been a good fight. Sounds like Willie Monroe and Billy Joe Saunders is going to fight September. They're finalizing that. I believe it's really, really close to being final. I'm almost positive, actually. Also, just based off the Pacquiao fight, we're going to talk about Bob Arum and Manny Pacquiao's camp. There is some issues. There's always some back and forth, and Manny Pacquiao's camp is just kind of funny because you have Freddie saying one thing, Manny not saying anything or saying one thing, Michael Kahn saying the other thing, guys we haven't even really heard of, or people in the camp that really don't have a lot of pull saying another thing, you know what I mean? So there's always a lot of miscommunication coming out of that camp, let's be honest. But this seems... I don't know. There's a variety of rumors that Manny Pacquiao, that was his last fight under Top Rank, and so that's why he got screwed on the cards. There's just a lot of internal stuff. Bob Arum hasn't made a big deal about the scorecards like Teddy Atlas and Stephen A. Smith, and so many people across social media did. So we're going to dig into that as well. We're also going to catch up with the World Boxing Super Series tournament that's coming up. We'll cover some current fight news and rumor mill items as well. And you can check out the podcast every Wednesday live like you are right now on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. Listen to it live or at archives there. Also, make sure you subscribe. And if you could, leave a comment, leave a review on the show on Apple Podcasts, a.k.a. iTunes. I was a little lost there, kind of reading this text message that somebody just gave me. Also, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, etc. Wherever you listen to your podcast, it's very likely that we're there. Also, give me a follow at Rope-A-Dope Radio on Twitter. Check out the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast on YouTube as well. I'll tell you what, we are, and like I said, we'll look at, there is a fight coming up this weekend. Taylor and Davies, some prospects going head-to-head from the UK. So we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming schedule. I'm really looking forward to that World Boxing Super Series, man. The cruiserweight division is just stacked, completely stacked. This Saturday, they're going to have the draft gala, I believe you pronounce it, where they're going to rank all the cruiserweights 1 through 4 all the super middleweights 1 through 4, and then the top draft pick, so to speak. They are the top ranking, I should say, the top rated fighter. I'll get this out at some point. He's going to get a chance to pick who he wants to fight. So that's kind of an interesting take there. A little bit different. I believe they did that on Boxino as well, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. So it sounds like I'm getting more than a couple now text messages saying that the switchboard is not allowing people to call in. Um, so I apologize. Hopefully it gets figured out. Otherwise, CT, if you are listening, I don't know if you're listening on your phone or not. I can patch you in and allow people to hear you know what you got to say and stuff like that. So that may be what we end up doing. Um, but I'm just going to start the show as I normally do, and then we'll go from there. You know, if nobody can call in or anything like that, then I'll probably, you know, stop the short or stop the short, stop the I'll stop the short. No, I'll stop the show a little bit earlier than normal, but hopefully that gets solved, because that would kind of suck if people can't call in at all. It's kind of strange. But anyway, let's get in to some of these fights, man, because it was a really fun weekend. Now, boxing has a way of, like I mentioned, you know, taking one step forward and taking a large step back, or sometimes two-step back, steps back, I should say. Um, that's just how it goes. You know, a lot of people are trying to make some long-term um, outcomes or long-term, you know, uh, predictions on how much something like this is going to ruin the sport and whatnot, and just another black eye to the sport. And Stephen A. Smith and Teddy Atlas didn't help. You know, with that, they I don't really know if they were speaking 100% clearly or emotionless. You know, obviously both those guys bring up a lot of emotion, you know, and there's nothing, you know, nothing crazy about that. No big deal. That's a normal thing. But I think they were going a little over the top. You know what I mean? I mean, geez, some of this stuff was a little over the top. So I think that hurt it. But, you know, as far as like, is it going to hurt boxing? You know, boxing, and I'll get into the actual action inside the ring in just a second, but boxing is going to, it survives, man. It survives so many different things over the years. And it's easy to say, oh, it's dead and it'll never be the same and this and that. And I don't think it will ever be the same. I don't know how it could be. But I think you can overrate some certain things as well, where you're putting a little too much emphasis on, you know, on something, and people either forget, or next thing you know, they're on to the next one. Short attention span and whatnot. But, you know, you get a big audience in there, and then a lot of people, and I'm talking about the Pacquiao fight, obviously, on ESPN, and a lot of people looked at it like on social media, a lot of people thought he got robbed. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's going to be okay, though. It's going to be okay. Trust me when I say that. It's definitely going to be okay. It's not going to falter because of this. People just kind of think boxing is crooked, and it's more than earned. You know, it's crookedness, right? So people are going to watch stuff regardless, whether they think it's crooked or not. Now, how much will they invest their time and money in it? Yeah, that's true. But you just can't. You're never going to capture all these new fans in one fight, and that's it, or two fights, or this is the fight that saves boxing, and that type of thing. It just a lot of it's just hyperbole. You know what I mean? And it just kind of goes with the trend. I think boxing is going to be just fine. You know what I mean? But let's get into the recap. The first two out of the three rounds of the fight, I gave to Jeff Horn. And by the way, I want to get this out of the way too. Okay? I was wrong. A lot of people do these YouTube these YouTube channels, they can't admit when they're wrong. A lot of podcasts and writers and this, that, and the other. They either are afraid to make real predictions or they're going to score a certain fight a certain way because of what they picked and what they thought. All this preconceived stuff going into it is what a lot of people focus on. You know what I mean? And I, for one, am not going to sit here and take all the credit away from Jeff Horn and only talk about the negatives for Pacquiao, right? There are some things there that, I doubt he took this fight 100% serious. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think some of his some of his comments show that to be true, Okay, so I'm just going to respond to this message real quick. All right, sorry about that. Anyway, so I just want to give him a ton of credit. I was wrong. No matter if Manny Pacquiao took him serious or not, that doesn't matter. I mean, of course it matters, right? It matters to an extent, but it really doesn't matter. And here's why I say that, because you got to give the credit is due where it's due. And Jeff Horn didn't come just to pick up a paycheck, didn't come just to be happy to be in the ring with a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Top 50 all-time fighter, however you want to rank him. He came to fight, and he came, more importantly, to win the fight. So I called it the show Manny Does Australia, right? Just like Debbie Does Dallas. It was a play off that, obviously. I think I named one of my articles for the fight Pacquiao Summer Vacation. So obviously, on paper, this was a mismatch. Let's not get that all twisted up and tied up. It was a mismatch. However, and you could say, well, Top Rank ESPN, they're lucky that this was, a good competitive fight. And to an extent, sure, there is some truth to that. But I'm not going to sit there and say it wasn't a mismatch on paper, because it was. But no matter what Manny Pacquiao, whether he's aged now to the point where he can't really show his fighter's spirit, whether he didn't take it serious, which is actually what I think, he was looking ahead, whatever the case is, credit has to be given out to Jeff Horn. He fought really, really well. He exceeded all expectations on him. And like I said, I just appreciate his performance. I wanted to get that. I was wrong. Now, maybe if they rematched and Manny took it 100% serious, you never know. Maybe it would be even worse if Manny would show more of his age. But I wanted to get that out there and get ahead of that, because I got to admit I was way wrong. Some of these fights, you'll say, "Oh, this is gonna be a good fight," or that's a crappy fight. And on paper, he hadn't beat anybody to deserve a Manny Pacquiao fight. But the rankings are what the rankings are, and that's just the bottom line. You know what I mean? There's no getting around that. There's no getting around that whatsoever. So back to the actual in-ring action. Rounds 1 and 3, I gave to Jeff Horn. I had him up 2-1. I think that he landed a really nice uppercut. I'd say somewhere in the middle part of that first round. He definitely landed the bigger shots. Pacquiao did something in that last part of the first round, and he carried that over to the second round because I thought those lead lefts landed really hard. He started picking up the pace a little bit. And both of them, I thought, kind of missed badly in the first handful of rounds, whether that's warming up to each other's style, whatever the case is. Obviously, Pacquiao may have a little bit of rust. Actually, I don't remember when Horn fought last, so maybe he had some rust too. But neither of them really looked good right away, per se. But Manny, it took him a while to warm up. That's for sure, get the rust off. And I got to say, after a handful of rounds, several rounds, Manny looked pretty tired to me. He looked like he had already been in a fight. You know what I mean? By that time. So I had it 2-1 early. It started by the third and fourth round. I mean, I guess you could say kind of right away as well. Started to get rough, right? Jeff Horn was definitely getting rough on the inside. He was holding. He was hitting during the break, hitting what I thought cleanly with the free hand. He didn't really get a lot of warnings, and if they were warnings, they were light. He never got really a major, hey, dude, stop. You know what I mean? I also think that some of that free hand hitting some of those lands that he would do when it'd be inside or on the clinch, or they're leaning on each other, or he's leaning on Manny, getting him to the rope. I don't think, if you look at CompuBox, and we all know CompuBox is just part of the fight. Doesn't mean it, sometimes it's more valuable than other times, but sometimes it's not calculated properly. We see it with body shots, how body shots at times cannot be calculated, properly. And we also see it. All right, I managed to get a couple of people in now. We were having some problems earlier. So if you want to give it a ring, 646-381-4990. It seems like they're allowing people in because I'm starting to see a wave of callers coming in. 646-381-4990. If you're going for a jog, you're going for a workout, you're stuck in traffic on the West Coast, you're going grocery shopping, wherever you're going, take us with you. 646-381-4990. There's still 90 minutes left of the live stream, and then we'll be in the archive a little bit later. But anyway, the fourth round was close. That could have went either way, the fourth round. So I actually have, seeing it twice, I kind of questioned that one. But like I said, by that time, it was getting rough on the inside. Then I thought Manny went on a little run. I gave him the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh. I thought he started landing his jab more. The jab left hand, obviously, more. And also some decent right hooks. Over the years, he's developed that right hook a little bit. It's kind of awkward, the angle he uses it, but it can be effective. And it didn't seem like Horn in those 3, 5, 6, 7, those 3 straight rounds wasn't really out hustling him like he had. Not to say that they weren't tight fights. I think it was, or rounds, I should say. Manny was cut by an accidental headbutt in the 6th round. It was like top of the head. So it was a bad cut bleeding wise. The 6th round, in an exchange, maybe the last 20, 25 seconds, Manny actually did, Horn actually did land a big right hand, by the way. So maybe you give the 6th round based off that. I could see that. 7th round was a 2-way round. I just thought Pacquiao was a tad busier. Those left straights were really starting to kick in, that's for sure. Then I gave Horn the 8th round. I thought he landed some really nice right hands, and that took the round for me. Kind of went back and forth now. Then the 8th round, after Manny's run, and then the 8th round, obviously, to Horn. The 9th round, I actually gave back to Manny. I thought, obviously the 9th round, I was thinking it was the 10th round, but the 9th round is when he just spazzed out, right? He really let his hands go, quick, hard combos, left hands galore. Probably needed to step on the gas even more and earlier in this fight. But it did look pretty bad in that round. His face started swelling really bad. Jeff Horns did, and I don't know, man. He started looking pretty bad. And actually, during the minute break, I'm gonna hold on. Sorry. All right. During the minute break, the ref went over and said, "Hey, I'm going to keep an eye on you. You know, my job is to protect you." So he was hurting pretty bad. However, I gotta say, Horn, for me, the very next round, it really lit a fire under him, because he came out with more right hands, and the best shots, I believe, as far as the biggest shots, were those right hands by Horn. I gave him the 10th. Now, I gave the 11th and 12th to Pacquiao. The 12th was a very close round. I think he just landed harder, bigger, Pacquiao, but that could have went either way. So I had it about a 7-5 or 8-4, somewhere in there. Pretty much lean into the 7-5. But it was a close fight. It was very competitive. The CompuBox, like I mentioned, I think he got a little screwed on the CompuBox, to be honest with you. And I'm speaking of Horn, because I don't think he was getting credit for the shots he was landing with the free hand, where it was illegal. Yeah, they're tied up, or yeah, they're close to one another, or they're in a full-on clinch, but there's still some clean shots in there. And Manny, at times, looked to the ref for help. Other times, he was just kind of befuddled. And other times, he actually did finally start to throw back in the clinch and be like, all right, dude, this is how we're getting away with it. You know, we speak of that a lot. The Andre Ward fight, several fights, just this year, that you got to go with how the ref is calling it, period, point blank, period. And you have to adjust. And I don't think Manny adjusted that well when it came to the inside stuff. Now, Horn outworked him, out-hustled him. He threw 625 to only 573. That's not that big. It's not like he outpunched him by 100, 150 throws. You know what I mean? But the disparity in the landing was 182 to 92. So that's basically almost double. It might as well be double. However, I don't take a lot of credence into this CompuBox, because I think he kind of got screwed on some of the punches he landed that just some judges won't count that. Now, 115, 113, two judges had it that. So I'm right there, about 7-5, 8-4. I'm leaning 8-4 more than I am 6-6. And when it comes to 7-5, usually I'm like, okay, 7-5, draw, or 7-5 the other way. If you want to go draw, be my guest. Be my guest. But I can't find 7 rounds for Jeff Horn in this fight. I'll be honest with you. I can't find them. Now, I don't think, the CompuBox is very telling when it comes to that. But it was a really tight fight. I think the CompuBox doesn't do Horn his due diligence. I believe that. So overall, it was a good competitive fight. And although Manny Pacquiao is such an A-side compared to Jeff Horn, we just assume that he get the the scorecards, right? He would get the benefit of the doubt in a tight round. We assume that. But you know what they say about assumptions. You know what I mean? And you also can't forget about Jeff Horn being the hometown fighter. Obviously, right? We can't forget about that because look what happened, right? Look what happened. So to me, it was a really competitive fight. I was super glad, really, really glad that that it was competitive. Like, really happy about that because on paper, like I mentioned, it was a mismatch. And, you know, I always understood with Top Rank and this new ESPN deal, for them to lead with Manny Pacquiao always made a ton of sense. It always did, right? But they did get lucky the fact that this fight turned out to be really, really good. It was competitive, that's for sure. Now, if you thought Jeff Horn won, okay. Like I said, I'm willing to go a draw. I can't really see maybe 6-5 to 1 or something like that. You got a tie round in there. The 10-8 round, I wasn't really a big fan of. In the ninth round, okay, I didn't score at that, but okay, if you do that, I guess you could do that because Teddy Atlas did that. I'm not really sure. I don't know if it warranted a 100% 10-8. Maybe if I just watched that round again, it would change my mind on that. But we'll talk rematch. We'll talk retirement. We'll talk about what this rematch would be. Would it be on ESPN? Would it be on ABC? Or would it be on pay-per-view? Right?